If you're too salesy and the result is that you sold a lot, you're not too salesy, because too is a modifier that would say that it's over the line, resulting in some kind of negative impact. There's no negative impact, then there is no too, right? You're not too salesy. You're just salesy enough that people actually want to buy what you're offering.
You are now listening to the Creative Juice podcast, brought to you by Indiepreneur.io.
What's up, Indies? Welcome back to the Creative Juice podcast. This is episode 346. I'm your host, Jack McCarthy, and today we're going to be talking about email marketing and going back to some foundational, very important things to know about email marketing for musicians. With me, as always, is Circa, and I have a question to pose to you, Cirque. Have you ever gotten an email from an artist and it was just stuffed to the gills with information, with calls to action, with way too many pieces of news in their newsletter?
Yeah, dude, for sure. Yeah. I'm always reminded of that meme, like, that I ain't reading all that, but I'm happy for you, or I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah, that's definitely it. And that was kind of the impetus for this episode. The inspiration for this episode is my inbox is constantly filled up with emails from artists, because I've signed up to a lot of lists for a lot of artists. And I've also gotten subscribed to record labels' email list as a result, which is another thing that we could shame on this episode. But
yeah,
what we see a lot of is, in my inbox, is emails that are packed to the gills with way too much stuff that are missing some of the foundations of email marketing and how to really write strong emails. And so, in the spirit of kind of going back to foundations, last week we talked about selling and offers and the foundations of digital marketing as it relates to sales. Today we wanted to talk about email marketing and kind of give you guys a crash course in email marketing for musicians so that you can dive into it and maybe think a little bit differently about the key pieces to what makes a strong email campaign. And so I'm excited to talk about this today.
Oh yeah, I'm super excited to hear kind of the stories that inspired this and sort of what you recommend as a remedy to that.
Man, yeah, for sure. I'd love to kick this off with how my inbox gets flooded on pretty much a daily or at least a weekly basis with emails from artists, also businesses, but we're going to talk about musicians for the purpose of this episode primarily, because you guys need to hear this. I think it's important. And oftentimes I will get emails from artists where I just see the email come in and I delete it, or I'm doing an email sweep weekly and I'm just deleting a ton of stuff. And that is probably the most logical place to start off, is like, what drives someone to open an email? And I can tell you right now, the answer to that question is the subject line. But so many artists get the subject line wrong and they give everything away in the subject line instead of doing and writing the one thing that the subject line is supposed to do, and that's sell the open. When you write subject lines, what I want you to think about is, when you're building an email marketing campaign, no matter what your platform is, you could be using MailChimp, you could be using Drip, you could be using the Indie CRM as a part of Indie Pro Plus. No matter what your email marketing tool of choice is, when you are writing subject lines, I want you to think, what can I type here to sell the open, to get someone to open their email from me?
Yeah, especially after a long time of writing subject lines, like kind of when you begin, you don't know what to say. And then certainly as you season, it's more difficult to know what to say to get people to open. But if you can get into the swing of things, you can hit consistent runs where you always have some good idea. And the point is that the subject line will be forgotten when the email is opened. No one's going to care what baited, like, it's okay to clickbait in this sense, right?
That's so good. I'm so glad you started with that.
Yeah. So like with sales letters even, right? I will consider all will be forgiven when I use a headline. And so we'll call that attention in the AIDA formula: attention, interest, desire, action. In the attention and the lead into the interest section, I generally presume that all will be forgiven. I'm okay to get your attention and then segue that attention even badly and clunkily into what I'm actually talking about.
Yes,
Because
yes.
once you're engaged, like you're not going to remember or care. It's not as if I'm getting you to watch some video on my behalf. Like I'm asking you to read what I'm saying to you, right? Like it's okay to be clickbait in this sense, especially if you're speaking to people's desires, and it can become a cheeky, like sort of back and forth playful thing between you and your audience.
Man, I love that you brought that up because that's definitely a common objection to writing strong subject lines is I don't want to be clickbaity. Well,
Yeah.
listen, I've opened hundreds of thousands of emails, and at this point I open emails intentionally to think like a marketer. So I'm speaking about this from like a place of experience. I have never once read an email where I then got angry at the email and said, I'm mad because I opened this. If I don't like an email or the offer in it or whatever the call to action in it isn't what I wanted, 9 times out of 10, if I really don't like it, I'm actually taking issue with the body of the email or the offer itself. And I don't get mad at emails. I'm not like yelling at the email cloud, so to speak, but I can't think to a time in my life ever where I was like, man, that subject line, it baited me in. And now I'm so mad at this person. Never.
Yeah. I find that people who are like, I don't want to be salesy or I don't want to be clickbaity. It's like when you say that to me, I kind of immediately get and maybe I'm wrong, but I get the feeling that you don't know what it's actually like to have your emails clicked and open or to have your sales promotion sell. Right. Because if you did, like that wouldn't be a concern. Right.
Yeah. So true.
The proof is in the pudding. If you're too salesy and the result is that you sold a lot, you're not too salesy because too is a modifier that would say that it's over the line, resulting in some kind of negative impact. There's no negative impact, then there is no too, right? You're not too salesy. You're just salesy enough that people actually want to buy what you're offering. So I find these arguments to be like kind of annoying because it's like, dude, have you ever sold anything? Do you know what it's like?
Has anyone ever opened your emails?
And I don't mean to be like a bully about it. I just mean to say that like, get over it. Try having things go well and then tell me that you don't want to be. If Russell Brunson tells me he doesn't want to be too salesy on a campaign, I believe him because he's sold a lot. If someone who's never sold a lot tells me they don't want to be too salesy, I'm like, you don't even know what that means, right? So
100%.
Not warm to that argument.
Yeah, and this comes back to another kind of persuasive point that I think I want to make about copywriting and email marketing. Copywriting as a whole, but in the spirit of email marketing and talking about subject lines and that concept of I don't want to be clickbaity or I don't want to be too salesy. Listen, if you're getting into email marketing for the first time or you're really trying to take a real go at it and be like, I really want this to work, then hear me. And I say this from experience and also from my heart in wanting you to succeed with it. The way that you've done things up until now probably isn't sufficient for getting the result that you want. So you're going to have to try a different approach that may feel uncomfortable. And that discomfort might make you feel like I'm being clickbaity or I'm being too salesy. But like you just said, the proof is in the pudding here. Go after the result. And so I'm glad that we let off with this. I wasn't intending to at all to pick at this point, but it's a really good one. And I think an important sort of mental objection to overcome early on in your process of trying to better yourself at email marketing and speak to your fans in a way that actually gets them to look up and pay attention.
Yeah, 100%.
So we talked about selling the open. We've talked about subject lines and what it means to sell the open and to not give everything away in your subject line.
Yeah, and definitely don't attempt to say everything in your subject as well.
You're going to find a common theme in a lot of what we're talking about in today's episode when it comes to these kind of core parts of an email marketing campaign, which are really the subject line, the body copy, and the call to action. Those are really like the only 3 parts of an email marketing campaign, realistically speaking. Like you could talk about the images, you could talk about the graphics, you could talk about the HTML formatting if you want to get into that. But the reality is there's only 3 parts of an email campaign. It's the subject line, the body, and the calls to action. That's it. And so the only purpose of the subject line is to get someone to open. So what happens when they do? And this is the second place where I see artists really struggle. And this is nurture, I think, in a lot of ways, in how newsletters have been treated and approached and talked about in music marketing, in the music industry. When it comes to branding, it's this idea of, I need a newsletter that's going to just fill fans in on everything that I'm doing. And so what the main thing that I wanted to talk about when it comes to the actual body of your email, once somebody clicks and starts reading, is you don't need to tell them everything. The body copy, much like your subject line, has a purpose, which is to sell the click in most cases. If you're sending somebody out of your email or your intention is to get them to take an action, really the only purpose of the body copy is to sell the click.
Yeah, 100%. When you're doing this with sales campaigns, or if you're sending people to something that they're going to consume, you have to remember, I don't need to say everything or even put all the content in here, especially when it's a sales promotion. Like sometimes long copy sales letters and email will work really well, but I would never go into a sales promotion where I have a really great sales page that I'm sending people to, and all I want them to do is get there. I would never just put everything in the sales letter on that sales page also in the email. I would try a mixture. I would say email 1, I'll do a tease. Email 2, I'll do a long sales letter. And then email 3, I'll do reminders where the whole thing is to drive curiosity and attention. If you haven't seen this yet, click the link. Because once you get in the link, I can explain everything, but I might not have that time with you in email.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good approach, generally speaking, of how to drive curiosity across multiple emails. Because again, and I'll kind of go back on what I said a little bit, like the goal of the body copy is to sell the click. Yes. But the way you do that is by driving curiosity. You tell a story. And, if you need practice at this, here's, I think, a good process. Take a approach of subtraction, right? If you have a great sales page, for example, or a product page where you've explained really well what you're doing, or an opt-in page if you're doing a giveaway or some kind of offer where fans need to sign up for it. If you've got a great explainer on that page, wherever you're sending your fans, take that, put it in the email, write it as if you were speaking to one person singularly, and then just start subtracting like crazy. Just take scissors to it and cut out a lot to make it more curiosity driven. That's a really good way to, I think, find a balance of teasing, providing context, and also not, setting yourself up to have a blank slate every time you start writing.
Yeah, 100%. Sometimes you really want to, before you even start writing anything, go in, set your intention. Because for me, when I'm writing stuff, it really helps to know, what persona am I? What's my goal? What kind of me am I in this writing? To adopt a role, a persona, you have characteristics. It's not just like regular you. It's like super happy me or super jokey, sarcastic me. Like, to imagine what that's like, and then to say, what's my goal? Because if I want to go in and be funny and snarky, but really I'm just driving all the attention and the momentum towards the link, then I might be different in terms of how I choose my subject line or how I choose my opening line and salutations. It might all change based on what kind of character I want to adopt to get you to the goal, right? So I just say that to say that can really modify the strategy you employ from the beginning to the end. So it helps to set your intention, set your character and tone before you start writing, and know what you're trying to get to. Because if I'm just trying to get you to click this link and I don't need to be too verbose because all the info is on that link's page, I just need to get you there and reading or consuming the content, then I'm going to adopt a little bit of a different approach. I might be sort of like fast and short. I might not use a whole lot of words. I might use a lot of abbreviations. I might try to use humor to get the click or shock you to get the click to open, and then really carry this sort of curiosity of the subject line. Let's say I use a shocking subject line where you're like, no, wait, what is this real? And then you're clicking your opening, and I'm going to say, I'll explain everything on the next page, right? So really thinking about all that beforehand and sort of getting into that mental mode can change how you write this. It can actually make it more effective because you have a consistent character throughout and a consistent goal. I hope that makes sense.
Imagine this. Here, I'll paint a picture for you guys. Imagine you're going to go the next 3 months without dropping any music publicly, and you're only going to put it in your Patreon membership. I'm just going to pull a random scenario out of thin air. You're launching a Patreon membership for the first time, and you've got an email list of fans and customers, and you're excited about this. And the way you're going to get people into it is you're not going to release any music publicly for the next 3 months. You could say, subject line, I'm not dropping music again. That's your subject line. Get people to open. Body copy could be, Kyle, I'm not kidding. The next quarter is going to look real different for how I release music. I go over it in this video here. Link.
Yeah, exactly. If you were going to try to fake your fans out and just be like, I'm probably going to quit music, that's the incendiary line, or I'm not going to release music this way anymore, then you have this somber tone, right? You're not happy about that. You're sad about it. And so you want to carry that somber tone of the bait that you proposed in the subject line, the gimmick you're using. You want to carry that through the body copy, right? So you want to be somber all the way through the email, because really the reveal is after they click the link. And it's a perfect example of how, okay, we're adopting a character. It's somber. I'm upset. I want to make you believe I might be giving up music. That's the whole point. So how does that modify how I'm going to write the rest of this email?
Exactly. This is the kind of mindset that I think you need to put yourself in as a writer when you're writing email campaigns, whether it's one or whether it's multiple across something like a sales promotion or a launch. If you can get yourself into this sort of frame of thinking, it'll honestly really set you apart. It'll set you apart from the garbage that ends up in people's inboxes, because it's so bad, man. Let's talk about calls to action for a second here and links, because this is a mistake that I see a lot of artists make. Is I'll get emails about a release, and maybe, just maybe, the naked link, the naked URL is in the email. That's pretty rare though. Usually it's just one button one time, and the album art is also clickable. But I've seen time and time again, and this is just true in digital marketing, period. There's studies to back this up. So you don't really need to challenge it. You can Google it if you want. Your calls to action should be included a few times. You should hyperlink out a few different ways. Typically, when I'm writing copy for a sales promotion or an offer or a launch or a release, it's hyperlinked text, it's naked URL, and it's usually hyperlinked text or naked URL again. Sometimes a button if you want to get pretty, but I usually don't. I'm team plain text when it comes to my emails. And then sometimes an image with a hyperlink in it as well. But your calls to action should be clear. And I see this so many times. I see emails where it's okay, cool, there's a single out. What do I do? Where am I supposed to click? Am I supposed to know to click on the photo? Oh no, the whole email itself is clickable. It's just one big HTML chunk. That sucks. Don't do that.
Yeah. And there's other faux pas and little quirks and things that you can optimize about this. In fact, we have a whole training about email marketing inside Indie Pro. And if you're an Indie Pro member, you can go check out Email Marketing for Musicians, where we go over this ad infinitum. I think we also just did a workshop for Indie Pro members for email best practices for 2024. So that's got a lot of best practices in terms of the more nitty gritty technical stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of do's and don'ts. But the thing about email is that the simpler you make it, the better. If you just let her rip with a plain text email where you're talking in exactly your language like you would to your friends, I'll tell you what, you could do a lot worse than that. A lot worse. People do the most for just less results. So, you don't have to overcomplicate it too much.
Yeah, 100%. I think the overarching idea that I wanted to talk about when it came to this episode, because now we've talked about subject lines, selling the open. We've talked about body copy, driving curiosity, selling the click, and we've talked about actual calls to action and how to build them. The biggest thing that I think is important for musicians to keep in mind is shift your perspective on email marketing from being I need to do this once or twice a month and tell people every single update that I could possibly tell them and stuff it into one email. It's just not a good thing to do. And I see it so many times. All that it leads to is like distracted readers and people wondering why they signed up for your email list to begin with. Because most times that a fan is signing up for your list, even if you don't even have a bribe, a reason for them to sign up, typically they signed up for one reason or another. Maybe it's to get updates about your tours and your live shows. Maybe it's to get an update about releases. Maybe it's to get updates about, I don't know, a bribe that you put together, a giveaway, something for free. But in all cases, people find their way into your email for a reason. And very rarely is the get updates reason compelling enough that's actually what they wanted, even if they used it. So take that to the logical next step. When you write emails, focus them. Make them about one thing at a time. This is not rocket science. This is like the cardinal sin of email marketing, in my opinion. Stop stuffing your emails with shit. Stop doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe that seems a little harsh, but it drives me nuts. Like, I see it so many times. It's, oh man, there's no way that this is working out well for you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And like when it comes to the music industry, you could really do a lot worse, because I would say that there's like a handful of people that I've ever encountered outside of our indie community, obviously, that are doing email in a way that like makes sense. It's just so few and far between. And so, yeah, you could do a whole lot worse in the music industry. So just getting started, plain text emails, no design, and just getting good at writing copy. And the way you really actually get good at writing copy is, and a lot of indies don't even do this. Like our indies are great with like email automation, but I find too many indies don't do this, which is what we originally recommended. And probably I would still recommend is like email your list once per week and have a goal for that email. So it's get them to, even if it's just a click to open a video that's not yours, something you saw, right? Get them to take an action that if it were on your behalf, it'd be beneficial. And actually getting people to click external links in your emails tells Gmail that you're a trusted sender. So it's a good practice anyways, but get them to reply, get them to click a link, get them to like go to your website and do something, whatever. Have a goal per week. And it can be an arbitrary one. It doesn't have to be like sell a product or get them to stream your new single. And then execute on that by writing an email you think your fans would enjoy reading. And if you get into the practice of that, you'll become a lot better at copy. You'll be sending great signals to all the inbox providers that like, yeah, people engage with my emails. I'm not some scammer. And you'll be in great practice for when it actually matters. When you have to run a sales promotion, when you have to release an album, release a product, release a single, you'll be killing it by then.
I actually really love the piece of advice about maybe don't even send them something that's yours. If you want to start getting comfortable with email marketing and writing, if you're sending your fans something else that you just like for the sake of practicing, that can make you really comfortable with calls to action because you don't have a vested interest in it being your thing. And it's, oh, I don't want to ask my fans. That feels gross. Well, it's like, all right, if you're just sending them to somebody else's stuff, probably won't feel gross about it if you're just like, yo, I'm psyched about this. This made me laugh, like, or whatever it might be. It doesn't really matter. But that will give you the practice and the reps. I actually think that's a really good piece of advice.
Yeah, 100%. It's a hack. It's like a shortcut to how you should write copy about your own links. Telling someone else about a cool thing you saw and linking them to it is how you should write about your own shit. It's not like the only way to do it, but it is a great way to do it. And so getting in that habit is super helpful.
For sure, yeah. You know, a question that I get a lot is, okay, Jack, if I'm not going to fill up my newsletter with stuff, how do I ensure that my fans are going to open? How do I tie things together? And this is especially the case when it comes to just regular email marketing, like what we would call nurturing, right? Like outside of promotions or launches or, campaigns that span a few days, like, how do I keep my fans interested? And this goes back to the body copy side of things and driving curiosity. But if you are wondering about how to not stuff your emails, but still lead people to wonder about the next thing that you're going to talk about, you can open a loop, what we call opening a loop. And use that to get people to look out for the next thing that you're going to see. You've probably seen this in emails that you've been sent before. Hell, you might have even seen this in emails that we've sent to you. Be on the lookout for, tomorrow I'm going to send you, I gotta tell you the story later of how XYZ happened. These are the ways that you open loops into like keep your eyes peeled, and doing it in a way that seems kind of fun, maybe a little cheeky, depending on what your brand is and how you like to talk to people, the way you like to say things. You can open these loops so that people are like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to keep my eyes open for the next thing. And actually, it's funny, like it sounds obvious as I'm saying it out loud, but I have to remind myself that it's not obvious because it's used so infrequently that it needs to be reminded.
Yeah, I have forgotten at times to open and close loops, right? But it's just like, it is a practice that I think if I'm doing my very best, I am making sure there's never not an open loop.
Yeah.
So that means threading loops. It means saying from the moment someone joins your list, the first email should open a loop. And before that first email's loop is closed, another one should be opened. Sometimes you might have 2 or 3 things that you promised to them that they're waiting on that you said you were going to deliver on, right? So maybe email 1 is, I actually have something prepared for you because you signed up. In addition to what you already signed up for, it's a surprise. I will let you know in the next email what it is, and then I'll give it to you. And so that's an open loop. And then in the next email, it might behoove you to open 1 or 2 more loops before the end. And a great place to open like a second loop is the PS, is the postscript after your signature.
Yes. Yep.
So in itself, a PS is an entry email loop. So what it is like, I'm going to see that there is a postscript to your email, but I won't get to it unless I read the whole thing. Okay. So, or I might skip to it, but that's just to say that a good practice to not only have a PS in almost like every email, but it's also a good practice to get people to read the PS, to reward them. So having like things they would miss if they didn't read the PS there, like that they like valuable things, is a great practice because it trains your subscribers to say, I'm going to read the PS. I'm going to read through to the end always. It's in that family of like loop opening, because not only should you open loops on a PS, but it's its own form of curiosity driving.
Yeah, that's a good call. I actually have a number of email lists that I'm subscribed to where I probably open their emails and think exactly that, like, oh, I need to make sure I look at the PS because there's always something funny here, or there's always something interesting here. That's definitely something that happens psychologically.
Yeah, that's again like sort of the inside baseball, like nitty gritty fine details of good email practices. But just in a more general sense, to make this not intimidating for any of you out there who are sending shite emails and we want you to be better, is to just say like, go plain text, don't over design. Just plain text emails like you're sending to your friend over Gmail or whatever. Plain text is like so underrated. And then doing it once a week at least, no matter how few subscribers you have. Start talking to them. Get all of the discomfort out.
Yeah, for sure. To add weight to that, I will tell you guys that when I first started doing email marketing, really before I knew anything about digital marketing, like just was throwing myself into the fire of a million different things. When I first started doing email marketing, the amount of overwhelm that I had trying to make beautiful looking emails that also move the needle on like a project that I was working on was so heavy. It was so overwhelming because it was like, oh, the colors might be wrong, or like this formatting might look bad with these images here. And what if it doesn't load right? And this and that and the other thing, and all of this stuff, templates and that, and what do I say and where do I say it and how many things do I fit into it? All of that goes away when you just focus on simplifying, go plain text. And I can tell you from like personal life experience that like the first time that I started adopting a simplified approach to email marketing was also around the same time that I started to see email marketing actually work for me. And it was like a light bulb went off. And once you do that, you're going to want to do more of it. So it's like a feedback loop of good habits. You get the reward and it will just continue to make that loop occur for you. And it will make the process so much easier and so much more fun and have way less decision making involved, which I think all of us want.
Yeah.
So I hope this was helpful. A little crash course in email marketing. Like Cirque mentioned, if you guys want to learn more about email marketing and you're not in our Indie Pro membership, you should join. We have a whole training on email marketing for musicians and a number of workshops on email marketing as well that are inside of our training area. And we talk about email marketing all the time inside the community. So we'd love to have you join us. But I hope that this crash course was helpful in getting you to think differently about email marketing and hopefully write some stuff that your fans dig and that they take action on so that you can do more of it.
Hell yeah. Send more emails.
Love it.
Literally follow these steps. I'm not kidding. Start this week. If you have 100 subscribers, if you have 50 subscribers, start it.
There's the homework. We'll see you guys next time on Creative Juice. Peace.